Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick, Westworld Season 1, Episode 5, Contrapasso. Amir, our producer, is back. And of course, so is Tim and Bibbs, and I'm Alonso.
I promised you guys we're trying to get Ben in here, but he's super busy.
He's got a TCM cruise coming up.
He's an important man.
It's a full calendar, but he's watching the show. I know he's keeping up.
He should send us notes.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Like it'd be like the opening of RuPaul's Drag Race. He like shows up and gives us all a Westworld challenge.
There we go. I have a hologram.
Yeah.
The hologram Ben is
Listen
what
up,
we need.
angels.
So this is the middle of the season, which means this is a cliffhanger-y kind of episode where they maybe start approaching, kind of maybe answering some questions, but not really. But at least we get to see some moments we've been waiting for, such as, for example, the meeting between Ford and the Man in Black.
Mm-hmm. And this is the episode where a lot of people are pointing to and suggesting that here, at last, we have proof that this show is taking place on multiple timelines simultaneously. The William is, not me, the character, is the Man in Black theory. A lot of people are saying that that's got to be the case because William just met Lawrence for the first time, and how could Lawrence be reprogrammed so fast? And I'm like, it's sci-fi. I kind of buy that he could be.
They could have 4 Lawrences in the closet.
Anything. Are you saying that it is?
I've read people who are suggesting that this episode proves it. Because did you notice that the Westworld logo was a little different earlier?
If anything, I think this episode proves that William isn't the Man in Black. Like, definitively.
The Man in Black even says someone will come and pick you up in a little bit. He tells the little Anthony Hopkins.
And then, boom, he's reprogrammed, or he's programmed to or a slightly different plot
I think
anyway.
that he just goes back to the beginning of his loop.
Yeah.
And the beginning of his loop is El Lazo, and without any interference, he ends up being in a noose. That's the end of his loop, where the Man in Black originally found him.
Maybe.
And
Or maybe Ford's been reprogramming everybody and he's got a slightly different plot.
Right, like Teddy. And I was watching this with my niece last night. She was like, "Oh, is that the same town where he met Lawrence before?" And I was like, "Oh, no." And then maybe it is it? Is it not?
No,
I
that
can't.
was not
I wasn't
Pariah.
sure. It's okay. All right.
I
just check.
spent
You
a
can
long
tell because no one's painted gold and naked in that other scene.
Well, true, but it was a lot less
everybody-
popular.
Pariah
It was the
looked
daytime.
bigger than that small little village.
Yeah, no, they were not in Pariah
Okay,
before.
fine. Then I was right. All right, good deal.
I spent a lot of the episode thinking that El Lazo was actually Alonso and that William and Alonso were now characters on the show. And I got real excited. And we didn't have a Tim, but we had a Slim. And I was like, oh my God, that's so great. And then, it just didn't pan out.
I read somewhere that El Lazo means the loop.
Yes.
And it's the root,
Yes,
of,
it
the,
does.
word lasso and
Like
noose,
noose,
Right,
which
yeah.
could be
that way.
The
Makes you
ribbon.
think.
It has a lot of.
And also, it's not a far stretch to draw a parallel to Lazarus, who came back from the dead. Because in this episode, he was killed and then is already
Look
back again.
at you,
So,
Tim
I mean,
Frisch.
the
Yes.
internet pointed out some interesting things that I wanted to run with.
Thanks, Internet.
No, I think definitely he becomes a key player now, obviously, whereas he was sort of the seeming like exposition dump or something for the Man in Black.
He's not just a Tuco anymore. He is. He's
No,
a full-fledged,
he's coming into his own. So that's happening. The Dolores saga continues to deepen, where she obviously is more capable of violence than she was before. That's been sort of a slowly growing thing from the swatting of the fly in the first episode.
She's been growing as a character, and obviously that's part of the idea is that what if a host was able to grow as a character, where they were able to decide their own narrative? What if she was programmed to be a guest? What if that was the idea? What if you programmed someone to be a guest?
Like
what
to
if-
think
sort of
they're
like
As like an infiltrator.
Yeah, like or like the theory that William and Logan are actually hosts and they don't realize it, which I don't think is true. But like,
Well, but then why would she have begun with going through that loop over and over and over again, as we saw at the
because we
beginning
see
of the
people
episode?
get reprogrammed. They've said that she's taken on multiple different lives.
Oh, I see. You mean since then?
So it would be a
Bernard
little
did it or
bit.
Ford did
It
it,
would
yeah.
be a little bit like the architect in the one of the Matrix, how he's there to disrupt the system and push the boundaries, and like he's supposed to get to the end level, and then it resets, and then it's slightly different the next time.
And everyone knows how much we love those Matrix sequels. So that's a great thing to
Yes,
The
bring those up
analogy
for
was there,
sure.
I made it.
No,
No, it's there, it's
that's
there.
totally valid. I'm most excited actually about Maeve sort of reaching, discovering consciousness.
Yeah, like in a way that even
Dolores
she
has
was
to.
so-
Yeah, I don't know.
Chill about it too, just like totally casual, like hey, like nice about a Disney princess with a bird flying around.
Well, because here's the thing, though. I think there has to be something almost comforting about realizing that you maybe not cannot die, but will not die.
So you think she actually had that whole realization that
I think that's clear.
she's
that-
come to terms with it? Because
Yeah.
before she was freaking out, like what is this?
Right, but I think now that she knows that she has a certain kind of peace, knowing that there is perpetual regeneration, and obviously, and I cheated and watched the coming next week thing. She, I think, is now going to maybe start calling her some of her own shots as well. So that's going to be interesting.
Well, again, the idea of the hosts in Westworld as sort of an allegory for humanity and how we deal with the idea of divinity,
predestination,
predestination,
free will.
God, all of these things, all of those elements, all of those themes are things that in real life we may have our own ideas, may have our own beliefs, but no one has any certainty. They're not like quantitative facts that there is reincarnation or a life after death or that there isn't a life after death. They're all question marks. So the idea that here's a character who has that question mark sort of erased and like there's a period in there, even if the answer isn't necessarily satisfying, but having one, that must be insanely cathartic. And I don't know what you would.
Yeah, that's like a Zen plateau.
Yeah, that's like got to be reaching enlightenment.
Yeah.
And to have like a tangible maker who is not only a character in your life, but one that like is freely gives answers to questions asked almost directly.
Ah, that must be great.
Yeah.
Dibs.
They
call dibs on that religion.
What do you think about I mean, maybe not it's a revelation, but the fact that the Man in Black and Teddy have that conversation about your blood and flesh these days because it was cheaper. It certainly turns the whole, like these are just AI, they're not real, they're just robots. Like, well, yeah, he does have blood, and in some sense, whether it's programming or not, he needs that blood to function, and that one can give blood to another.
Right, because obviously the old school is like we have those visits with Michael Wincott as the whatever the
herky jerky robot.
Yeah, you know,
a million perfect little pieces inside.
Why do you think the Man in Black preferred the old school ones versus the new ones that are more realistic?
I mean, maybe because he likes a hard line between guest and host, and he feels like that by making the hosts more biologically, created, that blurs it somehow.
I wonder if the hosts are in some way not just created mechanically or in a lab, or I guess it would be in a lab, but like, what if they're actually part of them is organic? What if they're partially cloned? What if maybe that's easier. You can just grow them.
Genetically modified humans.
Yeah, and then like you can change parts of them. There's probably we've seen that there's stuff inside of them that is metallic, but it's so much of it is real that like you're telling me all of that is like synthetic nano. That sounds more expensive.
Presumably they found a way to use maybe human DNA even to create these partly.
Yeah, and I think that raises a whole lot of questions about who is who, what is what, and how these things function.
Because I mean, it's clear, this episode makes it clear that the blood, whatever that is not merely sort of cosmetic and like just to look cool when you shoot them. It is, you can transfuse one to another and like take life out of one and put life into another one.
But is it necessary, or is it just like, okay, so I get shot with a bullet and I know my body knows how to react to it. It doesn't actually do it, because then when Ford leaves, he says, so look back and smile on perils past, and it rejuvenates Teddy. He becomes more well than he was, meaning he didn't actually need any more blood. He didn't need medicine or anything to heal him. It was just a programming that said I should be this tired and run down. And
maybe that's a thought. I don't know. I saw it as he will use all of his juice.
Okay.
He will use all of it, whatever, to protect Ford. That was my thought.
Okay.
Like it's just right there, right in the end there.
And so I'm
just trailing off.
The two big Ford scenes here, though, we have one in which he basically talks about how he did want a world that he could create and where he could be the god and the motor of all things. But then at the same time, you have the scene with the Man in Black where he's not interfering with the Man in Black's digging through to get to the core of all this. So again, it's that notion of like, God creates the universe, God then steps back and lets humanity do what they're going to do and doesn't interfere.
And from a biblical sense, I mean, if you want to say that the Man in Black is the devil in this scenario, God creates the devil and lets him loose to test his creations and tempt his creations and mess with the order that he's established. But that was part of the order that he established.
But is he the devil or is he Adam?
Oh, interesting.
Like, is he Adam after the tree of knowledge, that he now has this awareness?
He has the wisdom. And
or is he just the snake? There's another theory that's going around.
The devil.
Yeah,
the snake was the devil? I thought the snake was just a snake.
No, it's the devil.
No, it's the devil.
What? Okay, I don't know anything about religion.
Pick up a Bible, bitch.
Okay, fine. In
I'm
any
an
case,
atheist and I know this shit.
I'm an atheist too. I just thought the snake was this cool snake. You like fruit. Anyway, there's another theory that's floating around. I'm curious what your take on it. that Bernard either is Arnold or is a recreation of Arnold, and that the tragic
I came to that
backstory.
conclusion with myself. I thought maybe
Yeah.
possible.
Oh, by yourself. you
Or
came to
or
that
Bernard
Like a big
is
boy.
or Bernard is actually an android. That was another.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, we've tossed that idea around. I like the idea that it's Arnold. They're the two big hints that I got. The one was Peter Abernathy when he was having his last interrogation. He says all those menacing Shakespeare quotes, and then my mechanical vengeance on you both.
Who
Yeah,
you both.
Said
learn,
both.
look,
Like,
yeah.
why would he care what Bernard does?
But
Bernard's
okay,
just
but if Bernard is a robot and or Arnold, then does that mean his whole family backstory is fake?
Yeah.
Or that
Could
it's
be
a
possible.
recreation of Arnold's actual backstory. He did say Arnold had a tragic past.
He
and that
has
led him
like
to
the
kill
whole
himself.
conversation on the screen, but
Right, with the
that could
wife.
just be faked.
Right. No,
It
no.
could be in his head. But
be a
I mean,
memory.
you don't know. I think he's real.
Because if Dolores' awakening is part of the plan, she needs a Bernard to get there, which means Bernard's actions
Right.
and motivations are also predetermined to be part of that narrative.
What if the other Hemsworth is a robot, since he really hasn't? He's one of those characters that hasn't had a reason to exist yet.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just hiding in plain sight, and actually he's the one manipulating all this. Because I don't know.
What if no one on the show is real and this is all just a big simulation and it's a huge letdown?
I'm
What
starting
if this
to
is a
worry-
television series and they're all actors?
I'm starting to worry that Jimmy's not real, or William's not real
In the show.
in the show.
Okay,
That
not
he-
me.
That he no, not you.
Okay.
You're mostly real, but the fact that we see so many Dolores hallucinations, she sees things that aren't there, things that just help guide her in a direction, whether it's a voice or seeing an image of
Oh
herself.
yeah.
or
Let's.
seeing-
We should talk about that
because
for
she has a moment where she says, "And the voices tell me I should follow you."
Mm-hmm.
Do we really need a guest to be part of her awakening, or if she's
I
freely
think
has
the reason
hallucinations,
why
he
she's
could be one of
looping
them.
in William into all of this is because they would just pluck her out if she wasn't with a guest. And I think in one of the episodes they say they don't interfere specifically if a guest is there because they don't want to ruin the guest immersion in that whole thing.
Ah,
No,
so
'cause they were
he's
gonna-
the one who's keeping
They were going
her.
to extract Dolores earlier, and then William said, "No, I'm doing stuff with her," and they decided, "Our
Exactly.
mistake."
So as long as she has a human with her, they're gonna let her do what she's gonna do.
They have to
'cause-
let that narrative play out.
Exactly.
Interesting. But yeah, so let's talk about the during the otherwise kind of whatever orgy sequence. We
I've
have-
seen better.
Anyway, it's like it should
tasteful.
be more
That's the problem.
something.
That's the problem.
This is the
Who wants
Wild
a tasteful
West.
orgy? What's the point?
Yeah, it is a little. Yeah, it could be a little. Anyway.
A little less Goldfinger.
A little less. Nonetheless, so we have Dolores going into the fortune teller room and then having this vision of herself, and it's like, okay, auditory hallucinations were one thing, but now that she's literally seeing things, are we supposed to just take this as a manifestation of the programming that's going on, or is there some deeper thing at play here?
It's weird because I had assumed that her seeing herself in the parade was not a hallucination. That
there was another copy of her
that was
somewhere.
Ford fetching her, because
Yes.
that is immediately followed by her.
Right.
I'm in a
So
dream
that goes back to like
interrogation.
how these timelines work of when they fetch her. I personally think from what I've seen and what I've read from other people, there might be 2 copies of every host in there.
Which is why Lawrence had such a quick turnaround.
Exactly. And so it would make sense to have multiple copies of these different guys. So if they ever want to like maybe link up to them telepathically or whatever, they could just do that.
Yeah, I sort of assumed that Bernard's conversations with Dolores didn't actually need her to be plucked out of Westworld
Right.
to happen.
Did we notice, by the way, that Bernard talks to a Dolores wearing clothes and Ford talks to a naked one?
Yeah.
I don't know what that
That's,
means.
so they
but-
have these naked ones in the home base, and they talk to them, and it's like just linked up.
But
to
naked
the,
is
right,
standard.
but we see her getting plucked out of.
well, she just collapses.
Right, because somebody says you fall into a deep and dreamless sleep.
Right. And then she's assumedly carried off.
Yeah.
And then
And again, not everybody has that phrase, as we've learned.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that strictly that might just be Ford, or has Bernard said it before?
I think Elsie said it once.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been
So a
said.
few
It's
people
just
have it,
hard
but
to
not
wrap my
everybody
head
does.
around them plucking out these people in the middle of this without anyone noticing.
Yeah, I think really only Ford has the clout to do that. At least that's what I'm sort of assuming.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if they're not in the middle of a narrative with one of the hosts, then it wouldn't matter.
But they,
So who
but
cares?
Dolores
some of them are.
for sure is.
No, some of them are.
but-
And I think that's one of the things that's creating this whole idea of this multiple timeline element, which aside from the fact that some things are probably quite obviously flashbacks, I think a lot of this multiple timeline stuff is people really looking in at the narrative and kind of letting their fan theories go. Now, I'm not saying they're wrong. What I am saying is that
They're
the
being
show,
the man in black.
What I'm saying is that the show isn't really telling us yet. The show isn't really being overt, and I'm wondering if we're trying to outthink the movie. And this is the sort of thing that has really wreaked havoc with other shows that raised interesting questions. For example, True Detective, where people spent like most of the first season of True Detective thinking, "Oh my God, the King in Yellow,
The
all this
Yellow
stuff."
King, which
oh
turned
my
out to be
God.
nothing.
Yeah, we think it's going to turn into a fucking Cthulhu mythos, and then it
wish.
turns out it was
I
just
wish.
exactly what it was on the
If you
surface.
just did that. God damn
I
it.
know, but that's the thing. That's not what the show was. We weren't looking at what the show was telling us. We were projecting onto it. We were judging the show
We
based
wanted
on
to
what
beat
we
the show to the finish line,
Yeah,
basically.
and that hurt the show. And I'm really reticent to do that with Westworld until they actually give us tangible clues.
It's kind of like what Abernathy in the first episode, when he gives that really scary speech, you're like, oh my God, like they're coming to get you. But then he was like, oh, this guy was a professor back in the day. That's why he said these things. And it kind of,
There's a simple Occam's razor explanation
Yes.
for everything, which is why that phrase was mentioned in the first episode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the whole multiple timeline thing is even if it is, because it does kind of scan. Like I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but if it does, it gets really complicated.
I don't think there's
How is the
multiple
show
timelines.
gonna make that clear to us?
Yeah, how is it going to explain it without like some
Yeah.
monologue?
The only way is to not do it or to do it unsatisfactorily. And honestly, the show is made with so much intelligence, and I'm hoping they're
I don't
doing
think so.
something else.
So here's my question then. 5 episodes in of presumably of the first season. This isn't like a limited series, right? Like, this is going to be an
It means
ongoing.
that they go more.
Okay.
In theory,
Not renewed yet, though.
Interesting.
Really, not really.
Not officially renewed.
All right.
It is expensive.
In either event, halfway through, do we feel like we're going to end this season with at least some level of narrative satisfaction, or do we think they are going to really make us keep working for it and get
You're
it?
asking
I
if
don't
we're gonna
think
feel
we'll know
jerked
anything
around.
about the maze, but I think there will be some narrative satisfaction.
I bet like the opening is the last thing we see is something like, and the maze gets opened or something like that. Some like the hatch at the end of the first season of Lost.
Yeah, I don't think all of the storylines will be wrapped up
Oh
nicely.
no,
No.
of course
I think
not.
one or more will be, like for sure. Like
Okay.
It'd be really disappointing if they weren't.
with Ford's death or Dolores' death or the Man in Black's death, but not all three, obviously.
Or
Anthony
or a
Hopkins-
resolution at least of William and what's his face.
Anthony Hopkins, who by the way is doing some of the best work he's done for God knows how
Oh,
long.
true,
He's so
yeah.
great. He has not necessarily been firing on all cylinders in every movie he's been in over the last 10 years, but my God, he's good in this.
Well, they're
But
giving him speeches.
they're giving him speeches, but he's also giving an interesting and complicated character.
Absolutely.
But more than that, he's also so good, has so much screen time, and is so directly pushing everything forward as a sort of God mechanism that I keep thinking to myself, oh, he's so dead. Like, we're not going to get him after season 1. You know, you don't get
Yeah,
Anthony
I could
Hopkins
see him
every
dying at the end of
season
season 1, actually.
Yeah, like, I think that's going to happen, and I think that's something that could throw all of Westworld into chaos. What if there was some sort of backup protocol? Ford dies and everything goes to hell. Like, that would be kind of cool, actually, but like...
or that he's the linchpin holding it all together, and that
Without him, yeah.
all
Without
bets
it, no
are
one
off.
knows what works anymore. It's like
should-
Nedry in Jurassic Park, and it all just falls
We should
apart.
talk about the discovery of the satellite uplinks, too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Elsie's little storyline
Yeah.
where she goes and investigates a woodcutter.
Yes.
Who
Yeah.
was trying to kill her. He finds a little laser satellite uplink in his arm.
Yeah.
Which is
And
looks a lot
Dolores
like
had a
what
weird
Dolores
dream,
also
yeah.
pulls something out of her arm when she's in the
Right.
fortune
Well,
teller place.
again, we had the reference at the very beginning, the notion that Westworld is not an end, it is a way to test out this technology for some other nefarious purpose. And so obviously, like if, for example, if the future of war is sending these guys into battle, you would want a satellite uplink so that you knew where they were and you could follow troop movements, that kind of thing.
Or it was like corporate espionage. in
Well,
some way.
we find out in this episode that Westworld isn't doing that great. In fact, they're hemorrhaging money, as I can only imagine they must. My
Sure,
God.
yeah.
How
Yeah,
much
but
must it
how
cost
does
to
a
keep this place up?
company hemorrhage money for 30 years. Like if they've been in free fall since Arnold died.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, but I think because I
Free
think
fall isn't something you could do for
in the
30
past
I
couple
think
of
the
years.
government is
Multiple timeline
probably
theory.
bankrolling this if there is indeed some more nefarious thing afoot, you know.
Possibly. I guess my point is that there's this huge corporate mentality that we're not seeing a lot of. Everyone who is talking about it, with the exception of Sidney Babbitt Knudsen, whose name in the show I
Right.
forget.
Duke of Burgundy.
Duke of Burgundy. She's
Teresa.
Teresa.
Well done.
They're not terribly involved with all of the business side of it. In fact, they're actively disengaged. They don't care, but it keeps coming up as a plot point. The
production side.
I suspect at some point we're going to meet like the president of the company, and
The CFO.
yeah, and it's going to be played by Ray Fiennes or someone real big to replace Anthony Hopkins after he dies in episode 8.
I did like in the speech that the Man in Black has about the million little pieces and how now it's all cheap. It reminded me of every time I've gone to Disneyland with like somebody who was a hardcore theme park geek. They always complain about how it used to be better, and then they got cheap, and now they don't do this anymore, and they don't do that, and you can't do this.
The power
and-
of terror is becoming.
Yeah, it's anytime
galaxy.
something changes, or sometimes, or like somewhere somebody some bean counter like took away this cool little extra thing, they know about it and they will tell you about it at every turn. So that's a very true thing on this show about how theme park people are.
Everyone's OCD. It's great. It's great.
So the Man in Black did give us a little bit more insight on what the world is outside of Westworld too. It's like a perfect utopia place where no one has purpose.
Or that's just his perspective.
Yeah,
on
that
it.
could just be a version of our world now from the point of view of a
Cynic.
comfortable
Yeah.
rich guy, you know.
That is true. And the other thing they talked about, something Ford said about his. What's the word you're looking for? His anxiousness, his like eagerness, it's really belying.
Betrays an anxiety.
Betrays an anxiety. I suspect, this is my theory, I don't know if it's true, that the Man in Black is dying, and this is the last thing he wants to do. This is his bucket list.
yeah.
Well, again, my niece was saying that she thought that he had a death wish for this interest in finding the way to die, and I thought,
die
well,
in Westworld,
I thought
yeah.
maybe, but also I think he feels like it doesn't the victories within Westworld don't count if ultimately you can't die. That it only means something to win a gunfight with somebody who could kill you.
Yeah.
But either way, that it
To
works.
me, the Man in Black comes off as like that video gamer that just keeps playing that game. He's so good at it. He's beaten it many times. Now he's just looking for glitches and whatever in the game, and he just keeps playing.
Yeah, what
Like
was
the
it?
speedrunner that can break the game
Yeah,
to
it's
beat
like
it faster than
even
anyone
after
could possibly.
people have gotten sick of this game and they're bored and they moved on, this guy
He's got to do every
has to
variation of
do
it.
every variation.
What was it? Pong that's buried in Mortal Kombat? What were we all talking
Pong
about?
is buried in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
There were a lot of in Mortal Kombat 2. But there's a lot of Easter eggs in a lot of games like that. I mean, Warcraft has so many different things. It is. I keep my wife is huge into Warcraft. She plays Warcraft a lot. And I keep thinking to myself, she plays so much Warcraft, she's gonna beat it. She's gonna finish everything.
There's no
There's
beating
so
Warcraft.
much This is the ultimate video
And
game.
it's specifically designed so that you literally can't do everything, well, at least not with one character. So, like, it's just impossible.
But the
it's-
maze is turning up so much now in so many other people's narratives.
on the coffin.
Dolores and yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That clearly it's a bigger thing than just the Man in
Yeah.
Black looking for Easter eggs.
When the image showed up on the coffin, I thought to myself, that is a Dharma Initiative logo.
Yes, totally.
And I'm not sure that's a good sign. I'm not sure that's encouraging.
One more
not,
note
not-
about
not a memory you want to raise.
Another note about Dolores
necessarily.
too that I read. She put on a gray hat, and if we want to find the significance of hats, white hat, black hat, she has a gray one.
Right.
So maybe she's just looping in William, and she's gonna pull some Ex Machina on him.
You need to start like a Westworld themed blog called The Significance of Hats.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't going to
Tumblr.com.
mention Ex Machina because it's technically a spoiler, but it's been a year and a half. So if
You
you, don't
should have
know
seen it.
how Ex Machina
Two, I
ends,
feel.
it's not
South
my
by
problem.
Southwest it came out. That was 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
but people hadn't seen it yet. Whatever.
So
It's moving on.
whatever. Yeah, I've been totally thinking that that Dolores is inching her way to an Ex Machina ending, but we'll see how that goes.
And I'd be
Well,
down.
that didn't give anything away. That was
That's
nice.
fine. That's just the
Yeah.
ending is
Okay,
similar.
fine,
We don't
fine,
even
fine.
know if that's going to happen yet.
Fair enough.
We're rooting
fine.
for them because, like, though they're a cute couple and whatever, but she's still an android. Like, she's just manipulating him. It's quite possible.
That's very
She's-
anti-android of you, and I do not
Yeah, I
approve.
say she's synthetic, he's Jewish. Can they make it work? Is he Jewish? No, I don't know. I just was trying to come up with a thing.
I didn't know.
Mixed marriage.
All right,
Never
fine.
mind. All right. So yeah, the questions do not stop on this show, but maybe the answers will appear in the back half of season 1,
Please?
or not. We'll see. But join us next week. Thanks.